Picture this. It's 1985. You're 10 years old. Your mom hands you a house key on a string. She says, "I'll be home at 6. There's food in the fridge." Then she leaves. You're alone. This was normal. This was childhood for Gen X. Gen X was born between 1965 and 1980. They grew up in a unique time. Parents worked long hours, kids stayed home alone. No internet, no supervision. A time that shaped who they are today. Let's understand their psychology. Gen X kids came home to empty houses. They had keys around their necks. They made their own snacks. They did homework alone. They solved their own problems. Nobody was watching them. This taught them something powerful. They learned to depend on themselves. If they fell, they got up alone. If they were bored, they figured it out. Their brains developed differently because of this. They became independent thinkers who didn't wait for help. This independence became their greatest strength. Gen X watched something heartbreaking happen. Their parents worked for the same company for 20 years, then got fired anyway. Loyalty didn't matter. They also saw marriages fall apart. Half their friends had divorced parents. 2 homes, 2 bedrooms, 2 lives. Promises of forever didn't last. So this taught them a hard lesson. People leave, companies don't care, promises break. So Gen X became skeptical, not mean or negative, just realistic. They stopped trusting easily and expected things to go wrong. When things did go wrong, they weren't surprised. This protected their hearts. Here's something interesting. Studies show Gen X is less happy than other generations. They report lower life satisfaction and feel forgotten. But they also have less anxiety. How does that work? Simple. They don't expect much. Other generations were promised success and happiness. Gen X was told, life is hard, deal with it. So when life gets hard, Gen X isn't shocked. Lower expectations mean fewer disappointments. This makes them calmer, less anxious, and steady. They're not happy, but they're not panicking either. Gen X has a special way of handling pain. They make jokes about it. Lost their job? Great, now I can sleep in. Going through a breakup? At least I get the TV. This isn't fake, it's how they survive. When you grow up alone, nobody is there to comfort you, so you make yourself feel better. You laugh at the pain. You turn sadness into sarcasm. You make problems smaller by making them funny. Psychologists call this defensive humor. Gen X just calls it getting through the day. Gen X struggles with getting close to people, not because they don't want love, but because they're scared of being hurt. They watched relationships fail and people leave. They learned that love doesn't always last, so they protect themselves with walls. They don't open up quickly. They test you first and wait to see if you'll stay. They keep parts of themselves hidden, not because they're cold, but because they're careful. They always keep one foot ready to walk away, just in case. But when Gen X does let you in, it means something. Their trust is valuable because it's earned. Their love is real. It just takes time. Gen X has a different view of work. They don't live for their jobs. They work to pay bills. That's it. Their parents gave everything to their companies and stayed loyal for decades, then got fired anyway. Gen X watched this and learned that companies don't care about you. So they made a choice. Work is just work, not their identity or purpose. They clock in, do their job, and clock out. They don't burn out chasing promotions or panic when they lose a job. This might actually be the healthiest way to view work. They have balance and boundaries. They know what matters, and work isn't it. But there's a dark side to all this independence. Gen X is lonely, really lonely. They learn to handle everything alone, so they don't ask for help, even when they desperately need it. They're struggling with depression and stress, but they don't talk about it. They just keep going. They say, "I'm fine," when they're not. They carry heavy burdens silently because asking for help feels wrong. This is the price of being self-reliant. You survive everything, but you survive it alone. And that loneliness hurts in ways nobody sees. Here's what makes it worse. Society ignores Gen X. Marketers focus on younger generations.
Politicians focus on older generations. Media talks about everyone except Gen X. They're in the middle, forgotten and invisible. This confirms what they already believed. Nobody cares about us. We don't matter. We're on our own. So they stay quiet, don't complain, and don't demand attention. Invisible and strong, but also invisible and lonely. But here's what people miss about Gen X. They're incredibly strong. They lived in two different worlds. They remember life before the internet and adapted to life with technology. They learned both and survived both. They're not fragile. They don't need constant praise or special treatment. They just need honesty. And when things fall apart, Gen X doesn't panic. Economic crash? They'll figure it out. Pandemic? They'll adapt. Job loss? They'll find another way. They don't make noise about it. They just do it quietly, efficiently, and alone. Because that's what they've always done. So this is Gen X. They're not cold, they're careful. They're not negative, they're realistic. They're not distant, they're independent. They learned to survive alone because they had to. They don't need you to save them because they've been saving themselves their whole lives. But they would like to be seen. They would like to know they matter, because they do matter. They're the bridge between old and new. They're the generation that raised themselves, and they're still standing. Invisible to the world? Maybe. But unbreakable? Absolutely.